Hello, folks. I thought I'd do a quick roundup of the Bible reading that I did at the annual general meeting that we've just had recently, because obviously some of us couldn't get there, so I thought that I'd just focus on that. And really, the headline for the talk that I did at the start of the AGM was the word endurance. Endurance. It's not hard to see why I would choose that word at a time like this, and we're going to dig into a little bit now. In Revelation chapter 12 and 13, we hear about the ancient serpent, the dragon, the ancient serpent in verse 9 of chapter 12 of Revelation, or Satan, who leads the whole world astray, and he's been hurled down to the earth. We know that his time is short, and yet he's filled with fury because he knows that he's going to be thrown into the lake of fire. And so because of that, he's causing as many problems as possible. And we're told that all kinds of troubles are going to be upon the earth at this end time that we're in now. But God is still in control. He's still on the throne. Christ is still ruling and reigning. And in verse 10 of chapter 13 of Revelation, it says, "This calls for patient endurance and faithfulness on the part of God's people." And so I was encouraging us to see that we need to focus at the moment on endurance. Dominic Steele, a pastor from Australia, has put it like this: we need to focus on endurance and not recovery. And I fully support that idea. Let me explain. There are many things that we've enjoyed in the past that we can't enjoy at the moment as people in society in the UK. Friends that we'd love to be able to see that we can't see. Things that we'd love to be able to do that we can't, and we acknowledge that. However, as the church, he was saying, and I agree with him, that we should focus on endurance rather than recovery. After all, God is sovereign and in charge. This hasn't surprised him. He's still ruling from his throne. And we should focus on endurance because he is the God who sustains in the desert. He takes like 1,000,000 Israelites or something into the desert, out of Egypt into the desert, sustains them with manna from heaven, with bread to sustain them in the barren place, doesn't take them out of it. Psalm 23 tells us that he leads us through the darkest valley. And so often I want to go around the darkest valley, but he leads us through it rather than around it. So I think it's wisdom on the basis of that to see that sometimes we need to endure things and to see where it is that God is leading us onto. A friend put it in such a lovely way like this recently. They said, I don't want to go back to the way things were before. I trust Jesus to the wonderful place where he'll be leading us. And I think that's a very good way to see things. We need to focus on endurance. Now, pragmatically, this is important as well. Back to Dominic Steele in Sydney Diocese in Australia. He says that, and they've had the pandemic sort of affect them differently. I don't think the rate of infections have been as high as in the UK, but he says that as he looks, and he's a great observer of Christianity there, he says that as he looks at the churches, as infections have gone down at times, churches have sprung into action, tried to do everything that they used to do, and then infections have risen again, and due to all kinds of factors in society, they're taken by surprise, and then they're discouraged, and they've ditched all their online ministry, and they're discouraged because they have to go back to it. And he says he thinks that those who have focused on endurance rather than just going back to the way things were as quickly as possible, and we want this to be over, haven't fared as well. This was borne out by an interesting study of Vietnam prisoners of war, people who were prisoners of war during the Vietnam War, and someone asked a prisoner who made it out of the camps, who were the guys that made it out of those camps? What do you think characterized them? And that prisoner said, those who took the long view and focused on endurance. He said those who were like, oh, we're going to be out of here in 2 months, it'll be fine. Those dates would come and pass, and then they would be terribly discouraged, understandably. And it was harder for them to weather the storm because of that. But those who were like, well, hang on in there, our hope is fixed in the future, they were the ones that made it out. Endurance, not recovery, needs to be our focus. And I think that is a good thing, because looking back in the Bible is not often a good thing. So they came out of Egypt, the Israelites, and they looked back and they longed for the things there, but God was leading them on to a new place. So sovereignty, sustaining us in the desert, through the valley, not around the valley. I think that's important. We have to find that happy place, which is neither down in the dumps or super idealistic optimism, but actually the Christian is encouraged to inhabit the middle ground, which is hope. Christian hope based on God's promises, trusting Him. And I say that reiterating the fact that we all miss certain things, and of course we want to see people we can't see in things. Yes, that is the case. But as the church, we need to focus on endurance at the moment. And I think that was an important thing for us to start for in our annual general meeting. It's an important thing for us as we move forward. A few ways that came to mind that we can do that over the coming months. Deep Bible study. In Matthew 4 verse 4, Jesus says, "Man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God." In this testing time, we now need to put into practice what we say we believe. So being Bible-centered is not just a kind of value to put on our website, it's something we believe. We need to be nourished at the moment. Deep Bible study is what is going to get us through and feed us. Jesus sees it as food, and it will feed us. And one of the things we'll probably focus on is the things like the Bible in the year, the Bible in a year, which have been really helpful for people, and it's been a hallmark of those that seem to have been growing a lot in Christian faith recently. So we'll focus on that. A deep commitment to one another. God has placed us into a body as the church. If we can meet together, we should. We understand there's health concerns that mean some can't, but if we can meet together, we should. 1 Corinthians 12:18, God has placed the parts in the body, every one of them, just as He wanted them to be. And we need to take serious that we're part of a body. It's not normally good when the parts of the body are separated from one another. It's normally a bad thing for a body. And to be together is the absolute ideal. And so we shouldn't be surprised if we become unhealthy or unbalanced or fall back in our Christian lives if we're not having a physical meeting together. 1 Corinthians 12 verse 18, He's placed us into a body, so deep commitment to one another. And of course that shakes down in other ways as well, like following one another up, reaching out to those in our home groups, things like that. Wide concern for the lost. Acts 8:4, those who have been scattered preach the word wherever they went. One of my concerns is that it would be easy to focus on maintenance. We just need to maintain things, or to become just inward looking and pastoral care, and that's important. But actually at this time we need to look out to the world. People have questions. This is an opportunity to reach them with the good news, and I believe that from the Bible we can see that God would want us to do that. Strong commitment to prayer. I think we need to find out in this season what it means to pray, "Our Father in heaven." And as I've said, a long vision of the road ahead. Revelation 13:10, this calls for patient endurance and faithfulness on the part of God's people. So deep Bible study, watch this space for that. Bible in a year. Deep Bible study, deep commitment to one another, wide concern for the lost, strong commitment to prayer, long vision of the road ahead. So will you join us in the months ahead? I do hope so. And let's push on, press on, enduring together, because the one who has called us, He is faithful. Amen.